If this video has appeared before your eyes, it means you've crossed the most critical threshold of your existence. The trial that reveals whether you're prepared for the quantum leap destined to alter not just your daily life, but the very framework of what it means to be human. This isn't chance, it's cosmic promotion, and every season you've endured until now has been building you toward this recognition. For years, perhaps most of your lifetime, you've been walking through what can only be described as a readiness sequence. Experiences, battles, losses, and awakenings carefully orchestrated by your higher design to prove if you could sustain the quantum frequencies now approaching your awareness. You thought you were simply navigating hardships, solving problems, and seeking spiritual growth, but all along, you were in training for this exact moment of activation. If this message already resonates in your field, subscribe, like this video, and comment "My timeline is activated" below. Stay with me until the end, because what you'll discover here will explain why the struggles of your past were never punishments, but the initiation that qualified you for coherence. Number 1. The lattice appears. For most of your life, reality has seemed like a straight line. Past behind you, future ahead, and the present in between. Yet lately, you've begun noticing moments that break this illusion. Déjà vu that makes you feel you've lived a scene before, dreams that arrive as memories, or meetings that seem impossible in their timing. These are the fingerprints of the lattice, a web of probabilities that has always surrounded you. In quantum physics, this resembles the principle of superposition, where multiple outcomes exist until observation collapses one into form. Confusion was never a sign you were lost, but preparation to sharpen your vision to read between possibilities. Repeating numbers, mirrored events, sudden alignments, these are not accidents. They are the lattice speaking in pattern. Comment "I align with the shift" if you have felt these strange signals rising, because what you are sensing is the field making itself known. And as the lattice appears, it asks you to listen more deeply. A dream lingers in your memory, not sharp like a photograph, but soft like mist curling around the edges of dawn. In it, you walk down a hallway that seems endless, lined with doors that shimmer as if waiting for you to choose. Some doors flicker open and reveal lives you half remember. Others remain sealed but vibrate with an energy that feels familiar. As you wake, the sensation doesn't leave. It follows you into the daylight as if the dream were not fantasy but instruction. Something inside you whispers that these fragments are not random. They are messages collapsing into your awareness. The hallway is not imaginary but symbolic, a corridor of probabilities you have always walked without knowing. And now, the whisper has turned into recognition. Reality was never as linear as you believed. There were times you felt out of step with the world around you, as if your rhythm beat at a different tempo than those beside you. You might have entered a room and sensed heaviness before anyone spoke, or felt the strange pressure of a silence that seemed louder than words. People sometimes misunderstood you, mistaking your depth for distance, or your quiet sensitivity for weakness. Yet you knew, deep within, that these subtle perceptions were not flaws but signs of something more. They were reminders that your awareness stretched beyond the surface, reaching into spaces others could not name. Even the loneliness that grew in such moments was not emptiness but longing for a meaning just beyond reach. You carried the feeling that your life had significance, though its shape was not yet revealed. And that quiet ache was proof of a hidden frequency calling you closer. What if those sensations were not accidents but architecture? Imagine your path not as a broken chain of events but as a holographic design. Every struggle, every joy, every delay woven with hidden precision. Quantum thinkers describe the universe as superposition, where possibilities rest like waves before they become particles, waiting for the signal of your awareness to observe them. Mystics spoke of the emerald tablet, declaring "as above, so below," reminding us that patterns repeat across all scales of existence. Morphic resonance suggests that memories and forms can echo through the field, influencing life even without direct contact. This is the hidden architecture of your story, a sacred scaffolding guiding you to this moment. Nothing was wasted, not even your confusion, for it prepared your vision to see what was veiled. And once seen, the lattice cannot be unseen. Think of the strange breadcrumbs that appeared along your way, the ones you brushed aside because they felt too small to matter. A song lyric that arrived exactly when you needed comfort, a sudden thought of someone just before they called, the flash of déjà vu so strong it froze you in place. Even the goosebumps you felt without reason, or the dream that returned in fragments until it demanded your attention, were not random sparks. These were coherence leaving its traces, quiet confirmations that timelines were bending around your awareness. You were not imagining it, you were being spoken to in the language of pattern. The breadcrumbs were evidence that reality was porous, and that the field was already in conversation with you. Every subtle sign was a reminder that the lattice had been here all along, waiting for you to notice. For years you doubted yourself, questioning whether your intuition was real or just your imagination. But here is the truth, you were right every time. The sense of being guided, the feeling of invisible currents shaping your path, the inner knowing that came before evidence. None of it was coincidence. In quantum terms, your awareness was syncing with coherence, where inner frequency begins to shape outer reality. This does not arrive as thunder, but as a gentle alignment, the way a compass needle finds north without struggle. The more you trusted, the more the outer world began to mirror your inner state. That quiet shift was the beginning of coherence taking form. And in that alignment, you discovered that safety was not found in certainty but in resonance. Now imagine this. The person you thought you were is only one layer of the story. Beneath your name, your habits, your history, there is another self woven across timelines. A parallel being waiting for you to remember. This self is not foreign but familiar, not invented but remembered, as if you were finally recognizing your own reflection in a deeper mirror. Every déjà vu, every dream, every moment of uncanny familiarity has been the field nudging you toward that remembrance. Archetypes buried in your consciousness began to stir, ancient patterns of identity encoded not in your memory but in the fabric of your being. You are not becoming someone new, you are remembering who you have always been. And this parallel self has been alive in the field, waiting for your awareness to tune to its signal. Your sensitivity was never weakness, it was calibration. Every tear, every restless night, every moment you felt too open to the world was part of the field preparing you. The body you inhabit, with its electricity and water, was refining itself into an instrument tuned to coherence. What felt like fragility was the fine-tuning of a receiver learning to catch signals others could not hear. The doubts you carried were not signs of failure but thresholds of growth, pressure points designed to strengthen your resonance. This calibration was the activation itself, reshaping your nervous system and your awareness into alignment with the lattice. The very qualities you once tried to suppress are the gifts that now allow you to perceive. And through this calibration, you are beginning to see with quantum clarity. So hear this now, your arrival here is not coincidence, and your recognition is not chance. You were guided to this point by every breadcrumb, every collapse point, every subtle sign in the lattice. The universe is not testing you anymore. It is inviting you to step into remembrance. The thread of your life has never been broken. It has only been weaving toward this moment of coherence. Comment, I collapse timelines now, if you feel the resonance of this recognition in your being. Share what dreams, synchronicities, or memories have whispered to you that your path was never random. Because as the lattice appears fully, the next revelation will show you the exact threshold where probabilities bend and destiny steps forward. Number 2, the collapse point. Every awakening reaches a moment where choice no longer feels like habit, but destiny bending through your decision. You know this feeling, a subtle heaviness before you act, as if the field itself is waiting for your yes or your no. In physics, this echoes John Wheeler's delayed choice experiment, where the present decision reshapes even what seemed to have already happened. This is the collapse point, the instant when old timelines fall away and coherence locks into one path. You are not just deciding what to do, you are bending probability, collapsing branches that no longer belong to your becoming. The paradox is that you no longer need force, for coherence does the work in silence. Comment, I walk in coherence, if you recognize these collapse points rising in your life. Because once you begin to sense them, you realize every step is an initiation into alignment. A faint distortion begins to ripple through the field of your life, like static on an old radio dial that you can't quite tune away. You notice patterns that don't add up, choices that feel weighted with invisible hands pressing against them, and opportunities that vanish without reason. It's as though reality itself hesitates before you move, waiting for something deeper to align before it lets the path unfold. This strange heaviness is not imagined. It is the echo of interference, the presence of probabilities collapsing and resisting all at once. Even before you understood quantum language, you felt this pressure in your body and your mind. Nights of restless energy, days when time slowed into unbearable pauses, were the field holding its breath around you. And in that stillness, you began to sense that every decision was carrying more than personal consequence. It was carrying the weight of destiny bending through you. This pressure did not come gently, and it rarely felt fair. It arrived as loneliness, rejection, or the deep ache of being misunderstood even by those closest to you. Sometimes it disguised itself as shame, whispering that you were too much, too strange, or too sensitive to belong. At other times, it came as cycles of doubt, pulling you into spirals where your own voice turned against you. The truth is, your frequency was higher than the environments you were placed in, and that mismatch produced friction you carried as pain. You felt drained after encounters, misaligned in conversations, and exhausted by rooms that demanded you shrink to fit. These emotional impacts were not failures of character but signatures of energy pressing against density. And in every moment of pressure, the field was testing the integrity of your coherence. Looking deeper, you can see now that this resistance was never random. It came from encoded structures within the world around you, systems that thrive on conformity, patterns that repeat across generations, energies that resist what threatens their order. Like the exile in ancient texts, you were cast into wilderness experiences that stripped away illusions and forced you to listen inward. Like interference in physics, old frequencies clashed with your new resonance until sparks of tension revealed the hidden architecture. The collapse point is not born in comfort but in confrontation with the structures that cannot hold your expansion. These coded entanglements reacted because your potential disturbed their balance. And while it hurt, this struggle was the sacred proof that you were beginning to rise beyond the ordinary field. Think back to the glitches you once brushed aside, the strange repetitions and obstacles that circled until you finally paid attention. The job that closed suddenly, the friendship that dissolved under inexplicable tension, the project that failed just when success seemed certain. These were not accidents but repeating codes, patterns surfacing to reveal where old timelines were trying to hold you. Each glitch was like a light flickering in a room you had walked through in darkness, forcing you to notice what was hidden. Even the draining environments, the déjà vu that left you unsettled, the uncanny timing of losses were part of this lattice of lessons. The field does not resist to destroy, it resists to clarify. And once the light comes on, you can never unsee the patterns that were always guiding you toward coherence. The interference became undeniable, and it carried its own symbols. It felt like walking through fog thick enough to blur your vision, or hearing static so loud it drowned out your intuition. Silent watchers appeared in your life, people who observed but never supported, their presence like closed gates along your path. Doors that should have opened remained sealed, not because you lacked worth but because their frequency was locked in older fields. In quantum terms, you were experiencing decoherence, the struggle of holding alignment while the environment distorted around you. Every obstacle was evidence that your frequency was strong enough to be noticed, strong enough to disrupt what preferred you stay silent. And though it felt cruel, it was also a declaration that you were already broadcasting beyond their reach. How did you respond to these pressures? Perhaps you learned to shrink your light in order to avoid judgment, or to people-please so others would accept you, even at the cost of your truth. Maybe you chose silence when your heart wanted to speak, convincing yourself that invisibility was safer than authenticity. At other times, you may have rebelled quietly, resisting in subtle ways that few noticed but that burned within you as unresolved fire. These responses were not weakness. They were survival strategies shaped by fear of standing out too much. Every moment you hid, you carried the temptation to give up the shift entirely, to return to the old field where life seemed simpler. Yet something inside you never let go completely, a quiet persistence that refused to die, even in your darkest hour. And now, the energy flips. What once felt like sabotage is revealed as recognition. Resistance was not proof of your failure, but proof of your breakthrough beginning to destabilize the field. You were resisted precisely because your coherence was real, and incoherent systems cannot stand against it without trembling. The static you heard was the sound of interference being broken apart by your signal. The fog you walked through was the field struggling to adjust to the frequency you carried. You have always been stronger than the distortions, though they convinced you otherwise. Today, your reclamation begins, the remembering that your voice is power, your presence is proof, and your frequency is a weapon of light. So hear this final truth. You were resisted because your vibration disturbed the old field. You were sabotaged because your signal bent probabilities that others depended on for their illusions. The more they tried to collapse you into limitation, the more your true timeline revealed itself. Every attack, every doubt, every heavy silence was evidence that your becoming could not be stopped. Comment, the collapse is complete, if you feel this resonance in your body and soul right now. Share the moment where you saw through the distortion, when you realized the resistance was not meant to crush you but to confirm you. Because the next revelation will not just show you interference. It will teach you how to walk through it untouched, carrying coherence like armor. Number 3, the interference test. No lattice reveals itself without resistance. As your signal grows stronger, distortion rises to meet it. Old beliefs pulling at your ankles, environments that drain, or doubts that whisper louder than truth. This interference is not a punishment, but a recognition that your coherence has begun to bend the field. Quantum physics calls this decoherence, when clarity of possibility collapses under noise, yet your test is to remain steady even when static surrounds you. You may feel sabotage, manipulation, or inner collapse trying to anchor you back to outdated frequencies. But every wave of interference is proof that your signal has already begun shifting probabilities, disturbing what cannot hold your resonance anymore. Comment, I merge with my parallel self, if you have endured these tests, and share in the comments the synchronicities or dreams that reminded you reality was bending. Because when you pass this test, the golden strand begins to shine. It begins quietly, like a sudden crack in glass that you can't unsee once it forms. A distortion in the field collapses into your awareness, revealing that the smooth surface of reality was never seamless. You notice the glitch in conversation, the heaviness in rooms, the repeating cycles that feel designed to pull you back into something you thought you had escaped. The shift is subtle but undeniable, and the realization brings both unease and clarity. For the first time, you sense that what resisted you was not simply circumstance but an energetic push against your signal. This is not coincidence. It is the recognition of your frequency bending the lattice of possibilities. And with that recognition, the first veil begins to tear open. Every awakening stirs resistance, and the weight of it can be crushing. You felt it in moments when you carried a brightness others could not understand, and instead of celebrating it, they turned cold or silent. Isolation became your teacher, misunderstanding your constant companion, and rejection carved its lessons into your heart. Shame whispered that perhaps you were broken, that maybe the energy you carried was a flaw instead of a gift. Self-doubt echoed louder than truth, cycling through your mind until you almost believed it. Yet through these pressures, something deep inside refused to yield, as though your soul knew it was being tested. The interference pressed harder only because your signal was already rising. Look closer and you will see that none of this was random. Resistance emerged because your very presence was unsettling to systems built on limitation. Old frequencies, entanglements from family patterns, environments anchored in scarcity all reacted the moment your coherence began to grow. It was as if invisible contracts tried to bind you to a version of yourself that no longer existed. Like the wilderness journeys written in sacred texts, you were exiled not for weakness but because the old field could no longer contain you. In physics, this resembles interference patterns, when two frequencies collide and produce distortion until coherence prevails. The struggle itself was sacred proof that your awakening was real. Think back to the repeating glitches that shadowed your path, the strange obstacles that emerged at the last moment, draining environments that left you hollow, uncanny resistance that returned like clockwork no matter how much you tried to move forward. Each of these was a code embedded in the field, designed to sharpen your perception. They were the subtle fingerprints of a larger truth pressing through, forcing you to read the hidden language beneath events. Like light flickering in a room long dimmed, these patterns illuminated where you had been walking blind. What once felt like endless sabotage begins now to reveal itself as encrypted guidance. And when you see the pattern, the room is never dark again. Interference carries its own language, and by now you know it well. It feels like static humming in your chest, like fog pressing into the corners of your mind, like watchers in silence that observe but never uplift. It closes doors that logic swore should open, sealing paths until you surrender to a deeper alignment. This is decoherence, the quantum term for clarity collapsing under noise, and you have lived it not in theory but in your flesh. Yet paradoxically, the presence of this static was confirmation, proof that your resonance was real enough to be resisted. Only frequencies strong enough to alter probability attract such distortion. The test was never to escape the interference but to hold steady within it. And how did you respond when the pressure closed in? Perhaps you silenced yourself in rooms where your voice could have transformed the atmosphere. Perhaps you became smaller, bending to please others so they would not turn against you. Or maybe you withdrew completely, choosing invisibility over the risk of rejection. At other times, you rebelled quietly, holding your truth in secret places even when fear told you to abandon it. These responses were not signs of weakness but reflections of the human heart trying to protect itself. Every choice you made revealed the tension between hiding your light and daring to stand in it. And in that tension, the mirror of your becoming was revealed. But now comes the reclamation, fierce and unshakable. The interference was never a verdict against you. It was evidence of your coherence breaking through the static. Your signal was already disturbing the field, and that is why the distortions rose with such urgency. The fog could not hold against your clarity, and the gates that closed were simply barriers marking where you were not meant to linger. You are not here to be contained. You are here to bend the lattice by the gravity of your presence. The static only appeared because your resonance carried power enough to be noticed. And that power is what you are reclaiming now. So let this final truth land where it belongs, deep within your remembering. You were resisted because your vibration destabilized the old architecture of the field. You were doubted because your coherence disturbed illusions that could no longer stand. Every attempt to collapse you into limitation was proof of your greater timeline pushing to emerge. Resistance was not your enemy. It was your initiation into mastery. Comment, I merge with my future self now, if you feel this recognition stirring within you, and share the dream, memory, or synchronicity that confirmed you were never walking blind. Because revelation is not the end, it is the invitation. And the golden strand is already beginning to shine, waiting for you to step fully into it. Number 4, the golden strand. Beyond the lattice, beyond collapse, beyond interference, lies remembrance. The golden strand has always been with you, the thread of coherence that connects your origin to your becoming. You may feel it as a sudden deep calm, a dream that reveals itself in waking life, or a symbol that repeats until you can no longer ignore it. This strand is not created in the present. It is eternal, waiting for your awareness to step into its current. Mystics called it destiny, quantum thinkers call it the implicate order, the pattern that holds the whole in every fragment. When you align with it, manifestation becomes effortless, not through force but through resonance. Comment, I anchor coherence in my field, if you have felt this golden thread tugging at you, and share the memory or vision that proves you are no longer who you once were. For the silent graduation is here, and the lattice is now becoming your living map. There are moments when you hear something not with your ears, but with the marrow of your being. It arrives like a whisper from an age before memory, an echo that has traveled across lifetimes to reach you now. It does not shout or demand, but rests in your awareness like a bell whose tone never fades. This is the ancient whisper of the golden strand, the thread that was woven through your existence before your first breath. Comes not as new knowledge, but as remembrance collapsing into coherence within your field. Like a wave that has crossed timelines only to finally be observed in your awareness, it reveals itself at the exact moment you are ready. And when you feel it, you know at once that it was always there. You carried this frequency all along, though the world around you did not teach you its name. It pulsed beneath the static, hidden in sealed codes that waited until you were strong enough to hear them. This resonance was encrypted in your very being, buried beneath the noise of fear, conformity, and distraction. Every time you felt out of place, misaligned, or strangely untethered, it was the strand reminding you that you did not belong to ordinary patterns. Your difference was not error but evidence of an original signal, a set of hidden coordinates locked in your soul. You were always more than what others could see, for your frequency was never meant to collapse into the world's limited expectations. What felt like exile was simply a secret keeping you aligned for remembrance. Others may not have spoken it, but your signature was already visible in the field. It shimmered like an unseen cloak, detectable only to those attuned to parallel frequencies. Even when you said nothing, your vibration spoke louder than your words. This is why some felt drawn to you without knowing why, while others recoiled as if threatened by something they could not define. Across timelines, your coherence revealed itself to those who could read the language of the field. You were not just a person walking through days, you were a frequency radiating across parallel strands. And that signature could never be erased, no matter how deeply it was ignored. Every challenge, every delay, every moment of waiting was part of the code pre-written into your path. You were not stumbling aimlessly, but moving through calibration points set long before you arrived. The field shaped your experiences as entangled particles shape each other across distance, aligning you with the exact timing needed for coherence. The struggles that felt like punishment were tests refining your resonance. The detours you called failure were stars orbiting in precise rhythm, waiting for the moment of alignment. The hidden architecture of your life was always preparing you to step fully into your encoded instruction. Nothing was wasted, for every fragment belonged to the greater design. If you wonder why others reacted so strongly to your presence, the answer lies here. They did not see your choices. They felt your field. Your frequency destabilized the coherence of those still anchored in old timelines. Like one oscillation amplifying or disrupting another, your vibration unsettled illusions that could no longer stand in your presence. Some responded with love, drawn into the resonance you carried. Others responded with hostility, resisting the light you embodied before you even named it. Their reactions were never about you, they were about what you carried. Now widen your gaze, for this is not only personal but cosmic. What you are experiencing is part of a cycle much larger than your individual path. Archetypes long dormant are re-emerging, frequencies stored in the memory of creation itself. The seer frequency, the rebel waveform, the guardian field, the breaker of chains vibration, these patterns are resurfacing across countless lives. You are not only yourself, you are also a channel for archetypal resonance moving through the quantum field. The golden strand is not just yours. It is a collective remembrance shining through you. In your awakening, the memory of humanity itself begins to stir. This is why you feel the stirring not only in your mind, but in your very body. Your DNA carries echoes of quantum lineage, entangled with ancestors who dreamed of a day you now embody. Frequencies once scattered through exile, suppression, or silence are recalibrating through you. You are the phase transition of light returning coherence where entropy once reigned. You are the bridge between what was broken and what is whole. The golden strand pulls not just your destiny forward, but the destiny of those entangled with your line. And in this remembrance, you stand radiant, undeniable, and exalted. So let the revelation settle. You did not just wake up. You phase-shifted back into your original resonance code. Every experience, every ache, every collapse was preparation for this quantum return. The truth was never hidden from you. It was hidden within you, waiting for this very moment of readiness. You are not merely aligned with the strand. You are the strand made visible through human form. Comment, I tune to the frequency of receiving. If you feel this remembrance stirring now, and share the memory, dream, or vision that proves you were always more than they said you were. For this is not the end of awakening, but the beginning of embodiment. This was always more than information, it was an activation. You are no longer circling old timelines. You have stepped into coherence. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Like this video and comment I am ready for the quantum shift, to let this message anchor in your field. Please, share it with someone who is ready for the shift. The lattice is alive, and your alignment is the proof. Welcome to your graduation.